Hello SMITE fans and welcome to the second set of, days for the OCL of week number 6. My name is Paractus. Casting alongside me is my good friend Timmy. Now Timmy, Tilt versus Nuovo. The best team in the OCL as of right now, competing against Tilt, who are second from the bottom, I do believe. Are we going to see another rerun like we saw yesterday between Incept and Rush?
It might be a little bit of a swap, to be honest. I mean, you put the highest team against one of the lowest teams, and it's a little bit natural they might go one-sided. It's really going to be, how much can Tilt really show that they can hold on to any advantage that they can get, stem any bleeding, and just slow down any sort of aggression coming out from Nuovo. So this is going to be Nuovo's game to lose, I feel. But I'm not counting out Tilt for some good plays.
Exactly said. Going into picks and bans in just a second for you guys. Now, last week when we saw Nuovo play, they versed Skyfire and Texi playing solo. The best player in the OCL played Ymir. And he destroyed. To put it simply, he absolutely obliterated everyone on Skyfire. There was so much pressure in lane, Alquan getting banned. I won't be surprised if we see a Ymir ban, to be honest.
Ymir early on, because of his passive, he just deals so much damage in lane. He hits you for double damage with his basic attacks. He can do over 100 straight out the gate. Guan Yu getting banned out as well on the side of Nuovo. And we also have to highlight the fact that Ymir has had a little bit of an alteration to his passive, where anyone affected with Frostbite does 10% less damage. A bit like Nox's ultimate, how that reduces the amount of damage you can output. So he does have some more presence in the late game. A Willage getting banned out as well. We haven't seen a Susanoo ban, nor a Ratatoska ban. Yeah, or Raijin. Oh, okay, there's a Raijin.
Yeah. I was going to say, if they don't ban Raijin there, Tilt to set themselves up well here, so they can lock in a Susanoo or a Ratatoska, as you just said. But a lot of focus bans towards Furin, the jungler for Nuovo. Surprisingly, a very, very core member for their team. One of the best Awilishes in the game of OCL. Susanoo instantly locked in there for Tilt. Not surprising at all. If it's on the board, you're going to first pick it 100% of the time.
Yeah, and that also takes that away from Furin as well, so he's not going to be able to get that as well. It's going to be a little bit hard for him to try and come back. I mean, there is the Ratatoska, Thor, maybe even Humbat, but it's hard to deal against a Susanoo who just does so much damage and has so much movement. Over towards Nuovo to really try and find out what they're going to pick up their first two gods. I worded that really bad. What their first two gods are going to be.
It's going to be an Odin and a Cabrakan. Now, obviously, one of those is going in the solo lane. I would like to see Furin playing Cabrakan. As I said, he played the Ymir, so why not play another Guardian that is like a fat Loki, honestly. That's what we use to describe Cabrakan now. Odin is very much in the meta for the OCL, so it's a good pick up there. Soul Barkus locked in for Tilt. That's a lot of damage, a lot of CC. And Cupid actually locked in for Nuovo. That's going towards AQ in the duo lane.
Now, we have seen in the OCL quite a lot of ADC mids, and I wouldn't be surprised considering that we've seen a Cupid, a very much ability-based god, with Golden Bow still in the game, that might go to the mid. And it could go against a Soul mid as well. Soul can be fairly flexible. I feel like she goes better in the mid lane than what she does in the ADC. Rather than getting banned out, it works because, Raven can be fairly decent against Cabrakan, especially early on. Cabrakan finds a very difficult time really getting into lane, getting that aggression, just trying to out-trade Raven doesn't really work. Zeus getting banned out as well, trying to focus down Agni. I keep forgetting his name because it's a bloody god name.
Agni banned against Zeus, so... A Wukong as well?
I don't know about that. Like, in any sort of scenario, unless you had an Awilishes who has been banned out, I would pick something like a Bellona over a Wukong, to be honest.
Well, I mean, we got to talk about some of the strengths of Wukong. Of course, he has that 7-2 transformation, so he can transform into the ball, which can knock up Cabrakan from his tremors. Nuovo locking in Ymir again. So they have a Cabrakan, they have a Ymir, and an Odin. Which one of these is going solo jungle and support. You could see a support there. I don't know. I want to see Texi on Ymir again, though.
I will say Cabrakan does not belong in the support role.
None
Odin
of them do.
can go support, but it's not all that great. It could be a Cabrakan jungle, Odin solo, and Ymir support. That seems like the most logical sort of places that you put those three gods.
True.
Here in Jinwei getting picked up as well. We haven't seen Jinwei all that much. We haven't really been favoring her. You know, we don't see her banned out, we don't see her getting picked up, but she can bring a lot to the table, considering the fact that she can get to lane very, very quickly.
And the final pick for Nuovo is going to be that Neath. So, a very confusing team comp, to say the least, about Nuovo, but they play each of these gods at a high level. Of course, we've seen from last week, all of the players are very comfortable in their own roles, so we could expect them to be playing this at a very high level. So, going into game in just a second for you guys, we'll see how these picks work out.
I will say, though, that I said, you know, during the picks and bans, OCL love their ADC mids. I mean, you might also do it now while Golden Bow is still in the game. You can still do it, but would you have preferred maybe a mage, you know, allow you to have that sort of AoE damage, high burst, objective secure? They do have the objective secure with the Shards of Ice from the Ymir, but he has to be able to be in there, and while he's challenged, he's completely immobile, making him a very easy target. But with the Odin cage, that's going to be able to really lock him down, and we now have Lynx clone with us.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the thing is with Neath and Cuba, they both have very strong abilities. The heart bomb with the 180% scaling if you hit the person with the heart bomb as well as the explosion. And Neath with her arrow just means both have a lot of ability when they're normally known for auto attacks when you have a hunter. But these two, they can both kind of work in that mid role. Either way, it kind of works nicely. The Cupid also works quite nicely due to the fact that he has a cripple, which shuts down a lot of the issues where you basically want to ensure that either Barkas or the Jingwei or even maybe the Susano just can't get out of the cage, and they're stuck in there with that Ymir, with the Cabrakan, with all this burst damage, and eventually they will just fall.
That is very important to sort of highlight, the fact that you can put down the cage and then shoot the Fields of Love inside of it, so you can't jump out of it. The only way you can get out of it is if you use purifications and have some sort of mobility. Right side mid camp's getting picked up by Nuovo on the side of the jungle and solo lane. Skips the the speed buff as well, so that's going to be open to go back to for who is their jungler. It's going to be Furin.
Yeah, so Furin wants to, however, Tia forcing them away as Pegasus is actually getting pretty low there. Cabrakan will do a lot of damage in the early game, and it looks like he has indeed gone into the Pebble Pot, so that the Refraction Shield will really start hurting, even though it's just a level 1 Cabrakan.
Left-hand side, Q fairly low on health, can bring himself back up fairly easily with that Share the Love. Again, coming out onto the middle lane, Dozen Pegasus coming in with the Jetstream. Stormcutter does a little bit of damage, but Taxi actually picks up Super Rocketeer on the solo side. Get your CGS soloed in the chat.
That is exactly what you were mentioning. You said how Texi is an extremely strong Ymir solo, and we see that there. And that's what's more important, that Tia usually has pretty rough early game compared to some hunters, to some warriors in the solo lane, just because his lane clear is a bit hard to secure due to the fact that Fearless requires you to go deep into the wave. All Ymir has to do is just freeze him and kill him that way.
Well, that's important to really highlight, because if you freeze him mid-Fearless, then he can't continue on. Russian Ranger on the left-hand side, Heart Bomb comes out, doesn't do too much damage, and we can actually see Invade on the right-hand side from Dozen Pegasus in X-Kill. They saw that Furin didn't have the speed buff, so they knew there must have still been open. Giving that away to Dozen Pegasus, that will allow him to have a little bit of a easier time, considering that he needs to try and make up for his solo laner, who was first blooded.
Yes, it's extremely important. We saw last night actually with Inside, when they picked up the Susano, they were able to get a nice early lead, that snowball, and once Susano starts snowballing, there's not really too much you can do about it. The Typhoon, the Stormcutter, the Jetstream, just everything up with so much damage. You simply have to get him online. And then if you put a Void Shield on top of that, it's just insane amounts of burst.
Durance and Dozen Pegasus still hanging around in the mid lane. Actually, Ultimate comes out. Seismic Crush does find X-Kill after he destroys a section of his own wall, giving X-Kill a potential escape, which he doesn't take. And Kraken's ultimate is down on cooldown, but it's not a very long cooldown. It's about, I believe, 75 seconds. So you can use that pretty, liberally.
And also, if he's able to basically bat out just even a single purification or some sort of relic, or even just an escape ability, that can really set up Agni if he wants to use the World Weaver, or even just a Spirit Arrow, root down X Kill, or even Pegasus try and pick them off as they try to escape. However, it seems like Furin actually wants to rotate over to the Fire Elementals.
Yeah, you have to try and, make the most of the Fire Elementals during the early pushing of the game, because as soon as it hits the 10-minute mark and the Fire Giant spawns, they stop spawning, so they're very quick, very easy goal to, try and get. A rotation coming out from the left-hand side. Looks like Russian Ranger is going to be jumping down. Taxi again, another kill onto Dozen Pegasus, and he's in danger as well. Super Rocketeer trying to chase him down, but doesn't look like he can... Oh, the turnaround! The Glacial Strike picks him up, back in the mid lane. X-Kill inside the cage, still underneath the tower, but does get picked up by the Tremors, with 4 members of Nuovo bearing down on him. I don't think there was very much that he could have done to get out of there.
We're about to hit the 4-minute mark and 4 kills have already happened for the side of Nuovo. And they've got their kills on XDs. This is like the one thing, this is actually a nightmare. Now they're already going in to invade the speed buff. They know they have the pressure. Even with Pegasus playing such an early game god, he can't do anything. And worst of all, they basically baited. They got baited by Texis. He used that ultimate, the Shards of Ice, perfectly to ensure that when the Feelers came out, he simply would stay there in the Shards of Ice, pick up Pegasus, and then when he was basically chased on, he knew that the tier just didn't have enough mana, and he basically just turned on him, used the freeze, Glacial Strike. That was a Mark of the Vanguard, makes it way too easy.
Blue buff getting stolen on the right-hand side as well, pushing Super Rocketeer even further behind, currently level 6, up against Taxi, who is level 8. Pretty big disparity at 4 minutes. And they actually gave the blue buff to Agni, which is going to allow him to be more sustainable against X-Kill in this mid lane. And while you're a Neath, you want some cooldown, which the blue buff gives 10%, plus that 5 mana per second regeneration. It's going to allow him to, really churn out more Spirit Arrows, more Unravels. And the Unravels is going to be strong against the Soul because it lowers your attack speed.
Yes, it's extremely important just because of the Fatalis effect of the Disapparate. Just, you need to be able to stop that Soul from moving around and having as much free time with the auto attacks. Soul is basically a magical hunter on the similar lines of Kronos and Freya, where she's very much focused on landing a lot of auto attacks. She has a very good tower push, if you can get her into the towers thanks to the Unstable Manifestation. And as you said, thanks to that Unravel from Need, she can really hamper one of the main key points of Soul.
Super Rocketeer nearly gets hit by the freeze, but uses the Lawbringer just in time, giving the CC immunity. Left-hand side, however, Shadewell Maid is a little bit in danger, training out with AQ fairly evenly, but they're going to go ahead and disengage from each other. Russian Ranger and...
Over in the solo lane, though, we see an engagement under tower. Taxi's getting another kill.
And the minions nearly pick up Taxi, but there's Dozen Pegasus and X-Kill as well. The teleport tries to come out to get him out of there, but Dozen Pegasus picks up the kill as well. And Furin is between a rock and a hard place, and a Susanoo does use a Seismic Crush to, move away. Good Ring of Spears to trap in Dozen Pegasus and wall off X-Kill on the opposite side, just completely stopping them. Neither of them can get out of the cage as well. And that's going to be very important to note later on in the game in these team fights, is that Soul and Susanoo can't get out of those cages unless they use something like a Blink. And because there's no longer any kind of combat Blink, if they take any damage previously, AQ getting picked up by Shadewell Maid, finally going to be trading them out, but very low mana. But as I was saying, they're going to lose a lot of their...
We saw a Purification come out there. Pegasus actually getting extremely low. Just Ymir, even with just a Shoes of the Magi and a Mark of the Vanguard, just does so much damage, as he said, just his passive alone as well, making him such a strong god.
Ymir slaps hurt, man, but we also see Cabrakan, a Odin, well, pretty much most of Nuovo slapping on the Go Fury. They do pick that up uncontested. Super Rocketeer push back into his lane once again. And there's the speed buff on the side of Tilt that could be invaded. They do have the time for that, but it looks like Taxi needs to be careful because there are 4 people near that solo lane sort of area. They will be picking up the speed buff just to ensure that they do have it and doesn't get picked up out from underneath their nose.
I don't think Nuovo are too worried about that speed off now. They've got themselves a nice 4,000 XP lead, a 3,200 gold lead. They're in a very cruisy position. as Texas tries to get a freeze under the tower on Rocketeer, but Rocketeer playing a little bit more safe now, understanding that he needs to respect his opponent just staying under the tower.
Well, he has to stay on the tower because he's 3 levels behind Taxi. I mean, taking a look at the graphs, we can see that Nuovo are ahead by 3,500 XP and 3,000 gold. Pretty substantial. Invade coming out on the right-hand side. They're looking for this blue buff, trying to push Super Rocketeer even further. They are going to turn on him. Shards of Ice getting channeled. He uses a Fearless to get out in time, but the World Weaver trapping down on top of him. And Taxi picks up the kill with a basic attack.
Yes, Texas just keep getting more and more fed. And he's just going to become unstoppable. The thing with solo lane is usually solo laners are known for getting the most farm in the game. And if he's able to get this kill, possibly even on Pegasus now as he's walled in.
He just... I don't know what happened to him right there. He was there, and then he disappeared. He got a third of his health done in immediately.
And also, if we actually have a look at Fury, he's going a bit of a different Cabrakan build from
Actually,
what we
shade well made on the left-hand side. Gain aggressed on. Ruin Spears comes down, but the airstrike actually gets him out of the... Oh, a minion arrow actually tracked down, and Skis got picked up the kill in favor of that. There was actually a minion arrow which followed him. It does follow you through the air and waits for you until you land, so... If he did it just a split second earlier, then he might have gone out of that alive.
Now, was the Odin K still around when the minion arrow hit? Because that's the important question, because that would be the difference between 5 physical power and not. Since this Odin has opted to go into a reinforced shoes, an extra bit of power would definitely be something very beneficial for Nuovo if they want to keep pushing this massive lead.
Yeah, I don't think the stack of the Odin passive, which is whenever someone dies in your cage, you get a little bit of extra power. Jinwei was out of the ring at that time, so I don't think he got it. Dozen Pegasus coming over on the left-hand side for pretty much the first time in the game. Gonna go onto AQ, can really keep up with the Cupid even after the Flutter. Turns around with the Heart Bomb, and he's scared off both of them. He was fairly low on health considering that he was 2v1. World Weaver actually coming out, nearly takes out Shadewell Made. If he engaged with the Cupid a little bit longer than that, he would have ended up dying.
Luckily, the thing with Jinwei is, once she gets out, she can just fly straight back to the land thanks to her passive. However, the Fields of Love does come down to Pegasus, forcing on the beads. Just got bursted down by the Bird Bomb. There is nothing you could do about that. I feel very sorry for that poor Susano.
Yeah, now there's a rotation coming back over towards the mid lane. Doesn't look like they will be going too far. Skis does want to try and come in here, prime him up the Bird Bomb, and not really going to find it. A little bit too risky, no vision. Red buff is up for Execute to pick up, so he will be able to sort of get some XP and gold and a bit more of an advantage off that. Rotation coming around from the Russian Ranger. Doesn't look like AQ sees him, and he will be taking out the boars. There's a lot, actually, Furin coming up, finds Execute, just finishing up the red buff. Hasn't picked it up yet, and he's just waiting there, trying to find something.
Well, Furin does have that Polynomicon online now, so the reason why you can be calling that Fat Loki is now even more so due to the fact that if you Seismic Crush into an auto attack, you'll easily chunk them down.
Oh, X-Kill in a lot of danger. Texi picks up the kill. Hearts of Ice gain channel for zoning, and they're just going to go ahead, walk out, pick up that single kill, and then just leave it at there. They are in the mid lane now, trying to push down this tower. It is about half health, so they will be able to get this down fairly easily. Dozen Pegasus really shook the Hornet's Nest there, pulling in Furin, but now he's in a cage, and he's about to fall down. Does fall down to Tex, and that gives Odin another passive stack. They're going to be continuing on pushing down this middle lane.
Not just the middle lane as well, if we have a look in the dual lane as well, Cupid very close to taking that tier 1 tower. The tier 2 tower will most certainly fall in the mid lane. Till just don't have the defense, they don't have anything. It's 1 to 12 minutes in. They've literally been getting a kill every single minute.
Well, we've again primed up, trying to look for Super Rocketeer. Furin wants to go onto it, but looks like it's going to be called off. Take a look at the graphs right now. Before, it was about a 3,000 lead. Now it's a nearly 11,000 XP lead and 8,000 gold. It's just skyrocketed in the favor of Nuovo. 1 kill to 12, a Gold Fury, and 2 towers have fallen for Nuovo. Actually, 3 towers. They got the Solar Lane tower a while ago, and they're going to be looking for another Gold Fury. Shadewell Made sees it, but he's going to be turned on. The wall comes out, and Shade immediately gets spooked. Zoned out by Taxi, who's just, at this point, massive, level 15.
Well, Texas is 8-1-0. For a solo laner who usually doesn't see too much combat, That just shows he's one, been just playing very well on the solo lane, and two, he's been rotating now that he knows he has his farm and been using that to his advantage. He's just been causing absolute chaos on the battlefield. And due to the fact that most of the purifications there, like there's so much CC on the side of Nuovo, you purify a freeze or even a glacial strike, you might regret it because in the next second you could possibly be crushed by a Kraken, get caught in by even the Cupid, cripples. There are so many different forms of CC, it's just impossible to pick your poison.
I think it's, if you had to choose one of them, you would have to use purification on the freeze, because that's the longest crowd control, it's the longest stun in the game outside of mesmerizers, which are kind of like a soft stun. And if you don't use the purification on that, you're lining yourself up for a world of hurt. But as you said, just so much CC, and at this point, the damage differences are so extreme. I mean, take a look at the player damage. That has been a huge amount. 13 minutes in, 4,500 is the highest coming out from Taxi. But then the highest next on the side of Tilt is the Susanoo at 3,500, which for a Susanoo is fairly low.
What's even more surprising is the Barkis with only 1,000 damage. That's basically saying Bellyflop maybe once or twice and use Intoxicate once. And that is not something you want to see on a Barkis. Barkis is all about being super aggressive, engaging, belly flopping, intoxicating, setting up your team damage, but they know they just don't have the backup needed for the damage, even with that damage. And now Nuovo are starting up a Fire Giant this early on at 13 minutes in.
Yeah, 14 minutes into the game is not when you usually do a Fire Giant, because as you can look at Skis, Fire Giant hurts, but Nuovo have just been basically steroided in this game, gone fed so much. Ren Spears comes down, zones out Super Rocketeer, Typhoon comes out, only finds one, and Nuovo pick up the Fire Giant, making them even stronger. Agni picks up the Russian Rengar, and also double kill, picking up Rocketeer. Now Tilt have to try and retreat, find themselves a place to defend. Looks like Shaywell Maid is the closest one in. Blink coming out from Furin. Will Weaver as well is going to slow him down. He does an enormous amount of damage. Seismic Crush is going to chase him down underneath the tower. Doing so much damage. Got to take him out solo. Supernova coming out for a little bit of zone. Not a lot of damage comes out as a result of it. Purification preemptively from Dozen Pegasus. Stops the freeze. Gets out of the field of love. Does X-Kill. Focusing down the Phoenix. And there's not much that Tilt can really do. Furin is fairly low. They're all actually fairly low. Russian Rengar finds the Intoxicate, but no kills off the back of it. Shaywell Maid trying to come in for a bit of ADC damage, sustainable, nice is what they really need. They also have to solve for that sustainability damage. Skis trying to get out. They haven't found any kills on the side of Tilt. The last one that they had was so long ago on the side of Dozen Pegasus. Teleport coming in from Tax. This is going to be a hard sort of stop. You know, wall in Dozen Pegasus as well. Shards of Ice not gonna find the kill. Stormcutter providing that dash needed to get out. Dodges the Glacial Strike. Can he dodge the Bow Bomb though? He doesn't, but it doesn't take him down immediately. Agni over the wall and the Ren Spears inside. Skis does fall down. Dozen Pegasus getting picked up by Taxi, and now they're trying to defend the right hand side tower against Taxi and AQ. As well as Agni sort of in the area, he's recalling, but they still have the Fire Giant buff, which means they can do a lot of damage to that tower if they're not careful. Furin coming in on the flank, Russian Rengar a little bit out of position. Ultimate comes down, doesn't do too much damage to Super Rocketeer, does get hit with the freeze. Glacial Strike as well will finish him off, and now AQ has returned back to the tower.
Yeah, as you can see that, even Nuovo, when they're just going in like one member, as you saw, they're just only Furin himself since he has that Polynomicon, walked in there with the Solar Reaver, used the ultimate, and then Texi's followed it up with the Glacial Strike, and that was it. Even 4 members can't defend against Truth. This is how far ahead they are. Comparing the level difference is just insane, and now Seismic Crush is trying to come out from Furin, but Russian Rengar and X-Kill are trying their best to get away, but I don't think it's going to be too much avail. Sanctuary is popped.
Kramer's coming out to stop them from getting away from the Shards of Ice. Finding a double kill. So much damage coming out. He now has the Soul Reaver off cooldown immediately after. Split push on the left-hand side from Shaywell Maid. I don't really see the value of this. Dozen Pegasus gain pretty much half-shotted from the Polynomicon Fat Loki build with the Soul Reaver, Polynomicon, and Seismic Crush. Super Rocketeer now has to defend the right-hand side with Shadewell Maid against Furin and Skis. I don't know how well they can do at this point. Super Rocketeer at the same level as Skis, who is the support against the solo laner. Normally you see a very big difference between that. Looks like Nuovo are going to be backing off. They want to try and just go through their jungle. They'll be losing the Fire Giant buff in about a minute. Gold Fury coming up. It's about now, just spawning in. And Tilt are looking very bad at this point. I mean, they just lost lane in all of the lanes, and there's not much they can do.
Yeah, so now what needs to happen is they need, even Phoenixes are not going to be safe for Till. They need to basically force them to unfavorable fights. Nuovo, from the looks of things, aren't the type of team from the looks of it to actually overextend, go out of the place without the rest of their team. And since they are so far ahead, they can kind of do that. But what Till need to look for is more, like, just look for the weakest link, and currently that would be the Odin. If they can just even get a kill onto Skis, that will be something, just something to give them a little bit of advantage, just that little bit of XP to come back. Because currently 2-19 is a game that you normally can't come back from.
Tax coming in for a bit of zoning. Left-hand side tower, tier 2 tower does fall down. They're pushing down onto the Phoenix. Doesn't Pegasus coming out from the side. Shadewell may again walled off, frozen under place. Shards of Ice coming out as well. Doesn't find anyone. Belly Flop finds Tax. Intoxicate doesn't do quite enough. Picks up X kill. Odin Ring does come down. Doesn't trap anyone inside. Tremors coming out, doing a lot of debilitation. Super Rocketeer getting picked up by AQ. A nice persistent gust, knocking up 2 people, just finding a little bit of time, but it's just a little bit too little too late as the left-hand side Phoenix starts to fall down. Tax in a lot of danger. Stormcutter actually doing a lot of damage. Belly Flop comes in, does a lot of damage. AQ gets the kill onto Shadewell Made. Furin picks up Russian Ranga, and now it is only Dozen Pegasus to defend against 4 members of Nuovo. They're going to go ahead trying to ignore him. Teleport coming in as well. That's Tax back in the fight. Doesn't have the Shards of Ice to really finish this off. This is a very quick game by the looks of it. It's only 19 minutes in, and they're already at the Phoenix, at the Titan. Furin very low, has to try and retreat away, go and push down the minions, try and get the 5 minions in as fast as possible. But it is going to be all for nothing as the Titan falls down.
Wow, that was a game and a half.
That was a very fast game.
I said in picks and bans, did I not say after they ban Ao Kong first, did I not say ban Ymir? Did I not say that? Like, you saw how well Texi played it last week against Skyfire, a higher tier team than Tilt. Why focus ban Furin? Literally, Texi, although he is the best OCL player, he has a very large god pool. You can still cancel that god pool down, so he can't play Ymir, so he can't play these big carrying gods. I don't know. I think that as soon as they focus ban Furin instead of Texia, the game was over.
Yeah, if someone has a very large god pool, it is very hard to ban off them, because you ban something, they just pretty much turn around and go, oh well, I'll just play this then and beat you with it. And a thing that I'd like to make a comparison to is OCL, they tend to be able to pull off the early game aggression far better than what we've seen in most other places, particularly the OPL, where it's mostly a late game focus. Whereas this, you look at the Ymirs, the Kabrakans, the ADC mids, you know, that do provide a little bit of late game as a contingency plan. But it's mostly these solo laners on these early game gods that just dominate and smother the entire team. But that is going to be game number 1 of Nuovo versus Tilt. Nuovo picking that up in a very fast-paced game of 19 minutes. We'll be back after a short break with game number 2.